Alright, so today we got our first look at Murders at Karlov Manor. This will be the upcoming set that we can look forward to in the new year. And basically what this set is going to be is kind of a murder mystery theme set on the plane of Ravnica. And there's a lot of cool stuff going on here, so I think it'll be fun to kind of unpack all of this news. So with this set taking place on Ravnica, you're going to see probably a lot of familiar faces because we've been to Ravnica many times at this point, and there are lots of recurring characters that we're going to see. Even here in this art, you can see things like, looks like there's a Judith there, there's the Massacre Girl, you got Aurelia, that's probably Krenko there. So at this point, there's kind of a lot of fan favorite characters that can be drawn from to make new cards from and new lore and that kind of stuff. So that's pretty cool. In the article from Wizards, they mentioned this character, Alquist Proft, and the Ravnican Agency of Magicological Investigations, how they need to uncover a murderer. With a string of murders and attempted murders across Ravnica, the race is on to uncover who's next and who's behind it all. The team working the case expands as Kaya and her skills with spirits, and Kellen, continuing from his adventures across Eldraine and Ixalan, join Proft to solve the plane-wide mystery. So we're getting Kaya again and Kellen. It seems like they're really trying to make Kellen a thing, which is fine. I mean, maybe there's a lot of people that are a fan of this character. So if you're a fan of, detectives and mysteries and that kind of thing, this will probably be a set you're pretty interested in. What I want to do now, though, is take a look at some of the new cards that we got to take a look at, because some of them seem pretty interesting to me. So the card we're going to start off with here is Deduce, because this kind of goes into one of the major themes of the set, it seems, which is the Investigate mechanic and Clue tokens, which makes sense with the theme of the set, but we've got Investigate coming back in what seems like a big way. So there's Deduce here. This is just a common, though. This is a, 1 in a blue instant. Very simple, draw a card, Investigate. So this is an easy way to get your Clue tokens, but the Clue tokens seem like they're going to be pretty useful in this set. For example, if you're making a bunch of clues, you could use them in combination with this card, which is pretty interesting, actually. This is basically a better version of Tormenting Voice, I guess. Like, we've seen lots of cards like this in the past, but I think this is the best version of it that we've seen so far. This is Demand Answers. It's 1 in a red instant. Instant is very important. We've seen cards like this at sorcery speed in the past. So it says, as an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or discard a card. So that's pretty big to be able to do at instant speed, and the fact that now you have the option to either be able to sack an artifact or discard a card gives a lot of flexibility, because there is a lot of different artifact tokens that you can kind of have just sitting around at this point, now that we have, like, what is there, clues, treasures, foods, tokens, maps, probably more that I can't even think of right now. But, with this card, usually in the past you could just discard a card, but sack an artifact, draw 2, that's pretty big. There's a new rare here, Wojek Investigator. This is a 3 mana, so 2 and a white, creature angel detective. So detective is now a creature type, which makes sense with this set. This is a 2/4 flying vigilance. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, investigate once for each opponent who has more cards in hand than you. So in a 1 versus 1 game, this is still going to be pretty good. A 2/4 flying vigilance for 3 is fine stats, and if your opponent has more cards in hand than you, you'll be able to investigate. So that's pretty good. But where this really shines is, I imagine, going to be in multiplayer, because it says for each opponent, so you could potentially investigate 3 times. I would probably want to compare this to Tireless Tracker. This is a card that I feel like I've been comparing things a lot to recently, but the other card is very similar to it. It's a 3 mana card that you can easily splash with. It only has 1 colored mana symbol, and it can repeatedly make you Clue tokens. So, this Wojek Investigator is probably one I would keep an eye on, based on the history of how powerful Tireless Tracker was. Here's a quick one to take a look at. This is Shock. This has been printed a million times, but we've got Shock again. It's very simple. Here it is with new art, and, if we don't have Play with Fire, this is fine, but if we do have something like Play with Fire, then we're always going to play that instead of this, but we've got Shock again. Here's a pretty cool uncommon, not on my watch. It's 1 in a white, so 2 mana instant. It's very simple. It says exile target attacking creature, and this looks like a lot of limited removal. That's, you see a lot of cards like this where it's very conditional removal, but this one seems pretty good. And to me, it kind of seems like on the border between being really good and limited and being constructed playable, because this is good removal, but it's just the creature has to be attacking. But 2 mana, instant exile a creature. It's pretty good, and this is really pushing the boundaries for limited removal compared to constructed removal. Here's a common which is almost a functional reprint of an existing card in Thraben Inspector. This is just that, except this is a detective. Thraben Inspector is exactly this card, except it's a human soldier instead of a human detective, but that card was also very good in Standard, and it saw play in multiple formats as well, I think, so I would keep an eye on this one also. Just the fact that it's a 1/2 for 1 that gives you a clue, so it's 2 permanents for 1 mana, and the extra point of toughness is really big, so I would keep an eye on this one also. Here's a cool reprint. This is Lightning Helix. I don't think this has ever been in Standard in the time that I've been playing, since around 2012 or so. But we have Lightning Helix back in Standard. It's kind of fallen out of favor in Modern. You don't really see it so much anymore, but this is a very powerful card, and I definitely expect it to be played in Standard. Here's a pretty cool new card showcasing the Investigate mechanic. It says Alquist Proft, I guess one of the new main characters. It's 3 mana, 1, a white, and a blue. It's a 3/3 Vigilance, so that's a pretty good body. And this is a mythic here. It says when it enters the battlefield, investigate. But then this is a Sphinx's Revelation on a stick that you can repeatedly use. As I'm reading this more, I'm realizing how powerful this potentially could be. So you can pay X white, blue, blue, tap, sacrifice a clue, you draw X cards, and gain X life. This card kind of scares me a little bit, just because, this is a good body, a 3/3 Vigilance for 3 that makes you a clue when it comes into play, but then a repeatable Sphinx's Revelation on a stick is really good. And here's a new uncommon that seems really good to me. This is Gleaming Gear Drake. It's a 1/1 flyer for 2. It costs a red and a blue. It's an artifact creature Drake. It says when it enters the battlefield, investigate. Also though, when you sacrifice an artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on Gleaming Gear Drake. So treasure tokens are artifacts, and they're there to be sacrificed, as well as, maps and clues and food and things like that. I feel like this is going to be really easy to grow very fast, so I would be surprised if this didn't work its way into some kind of 60 card deck, but yeah, this seems like a really good card. So we have a new version of Aurelia here, and also this is going to show off the Ravnica City showcase style of art. We saw kind of a sneak peek of this in, I believe, March of the Machine, but this set is going to have a lot of cards with this showcase art on it, but this Aurelia is pretty cool. This one is a rare. It costs 5 mana, 3 red and white. It's a 4/4 legendary creature, Angel. It has flying, vigilance, and haste, so that's pretty good already. It says whenever a player attacks with 3 or more creatures, you draw a card. And whenever a player attacks with 5 or more creatures, Aurelia deals 3 damage to each of your opponents, and you gain 3 life. This seems very good to me. As I was saying, just a 4/4 flying vigilance haste for 5. That's good. I feel like it's going to be pretty easy to turn on the first part of this card, where you attack with 3 creatures. Well, it says whenever a player attacks with 3 or more creatures, so this counts for you or any of your opponents, you draw a card. So it's pretty easy to, have an aggro deck and have this on the top end, I imagine, and you just curve out onto it. You play this, it has haste, and you can immediately draw a card. That seems good to me. And then if you can manage to attack with 5 creatures, you get even more value, so this one seems pretty sweet. We have another returning Ravnican character here, Rakdos, Patron of Chaos. You can see it also in the Ravnica City showcase art style. So this one is a mythic. It's a 6 mana, 6/6 legendary demon, as Rakdos tends to be. It has flying and trample. It says at the beginning of your end step, target opponent may sacrifice 2 non-land, non-token permanents. If they don't, you draw 2 cards. So this one is pretty powerful, I feel. I'm not sure if this is really going to be so good in 60 card formats. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm not even sure about in in Commander either, because it's target opponent, it's not each opponent, so it's cool, and it is a pretty powerful effect. I'm just not sure about this one. So I guess if I think of it as, you play this on turn 6, you have a 6/6 flying trample, that's a good body. It does something immediately the turn it comes into play. So at the beginning of your end step, target opponent may sacrifice 2 non-token permanents, so it's gonna essentially 3-for-1 your opponent at least. If they don't, you draw 2. So actually, when I think about it that way, it does seem pretty good, because it's gonna at least 3-for-1 your opponent unless they answer it right away. So yeah, it's probably pretty good. And here you can see Aurelia again. This is the other showcase art style in the set. This is the dossier style showcase, which is pretty cool, I think. So when I immediately saw this, I didn't like it, but I think it works pretty well, actually. It looks like a dossier, and I feel like this is one that could kind of grow on me. So this is your second style of showcase art in this set. Actually, I just realized there is a kind of a third type of showcase art in the set as well. So you also have this kind of art, which is like looking through a magnifying glass. I think that's what it's called, is the magnifying glass style one, but there are cards with this special border on it as well, which is pretty cool. It reminds me a little bit of the Ixalan border with the the kind of round thing around the edges there, but this one looks pretty cool also. And in this set, as we have with every set now, is a special full art basic land, and these ones show off the very busy city of Ravnica. These ones are pretty cool, I think. So here's the plains here. It looks like it's kind of mirrored on the top and bottom, but it's a cityscape. There's a lot going on here. Here's your island. I think this one is pretty cool as well. It looks like this one isn't exactly mirrored top to bottom, but there's a lot to look at in these showcase full art lands. The swamp here, I like this one. I feel like with a lot of showcase lands, the swamp tends to be the most popular one, the swamps and the islands. Not necessarily because of how much they're played, but the art in them just tends to be really cool. Here's the mountain. This one is nice as well. And then you've also got the forest right here. So one for every color. And I just want to bring up this land from Streets of New Capenna here, because the style of the full art basics and the new Ravnica set really remind me of this one, of just how it's kind of a cityscape. This isn't, well, I guess this is a cityscape. It's like a subway kind of thing, but how it's just very busy looking, and I kind of wonder if they drew from this particular image for inspiration for the whole set of new showcase art lands. And with this set is where we're going to first see the introduction of play boosters. So I did a whole video on the switch to play boosters. You can take a look at that if you want, but basically they're combining draft boosters and set boosters back into one booster. So we're going to have play boosters for this set. They are draftable, and you can have up to 4 rares in it. I'm going to move my face here so you can see the art on the booster pack. But I am a fan of play boosters. I'm not a fan of how expensive they are, but I'm interested to see the implementation of these new boosters. I feel like it's a step in the right direction, but as I said, I did a whole video on this topic. You can take a look at that if you want to hear my thoughts in more detail about it. Also, we're going to have the return of special guest cards like we saw introduced in Lost Caverns of Ixalan. This is a preview of one of them here. You'll be able to open Crashing Footfalls. It's a pretty cool card. It's pretty popular in Modern. There's decks built around this specific card, but if you want a fancy looking Crashing Footfalls, you can potentially open that in your play booster, I guess, of Murders at Karlov Manor. And as collector boosters for each set tend to have something particularly fancy in them now, this set is no exception to that. So apparently you'll be able to open these kind of cards in, I guess, probably just collector boosters, where it looks like it has invisible ink on it, which is, very thematic, going with the whole detective and mystery kind of thing. We'll just take another look at it here, but I think this is pretty neat, and it adds something special for collector boosters. And here you can see that there will also be serialized cards in this set, but it's kind of par for the course at this point. They're in most sets, I feel now, but you will be able to open serialized cards like this one. And then there's just this extra product going along with this set that we'll mention briefly. Is there's this Ravnica Clue edition. So from what I can tell, this isn't really a Ravnica themed Clue. It seems like it's more a Clue themed Ravnica game, maybe similar to like an Explorers of Ixalan type of thing, where it says this play experience is self-contained with everything you need inside the box. You can find iconic suspects, rooms, and weapons all represented in a ready-to-play experience. So it's like Clue-themed cards in you know, a magic, like a all-in-one-box magic product. But also, each copy of the game comes with a box topper featuring one of Ravnica's famous Shocklands. So there's another fancy style of Shockland. It's kind of funny seeing as we're getting Ravnica Remastered, which also has fancy Shocklands. So there's a lot of fancy Shocklands at this point, but here's another one. It looks like here the Buy a Box promo card is the Wojak Investigator. So that seems like a pretty good one to me. And then you gotta look at the box art here. Here's the play boosters and the collector boosters, and there's the bundle and the pre-release kit. There's also pictures of the commander decks here. We don't have a whole lot of information about these, but it looks like there is a Naya colored one, Deadly Disguise. You have a Dimir one, Revenant Recon. Actually, Dimir probably. Usually when people say Dimir, it's just to shortcut the blue-black pairing of colors, but we're on Ravnica, so it's probably actually Dimir. We have a Bant one here called Deep Sea Clue, and a Boros one, Blade Game. So the official previews will begin on January 16th, it looks like, so we'll get some more information then, but this is kind of being a first look at the set. As I was saying, it looks like there's lots of cool stuff going on here, so, you know, this isn't necessarily a set that I'm a huge fan of the theme, but there's interesting stuff for everyone, and I'm interested to take a look at more information and more cards when it comes out as well. So let me know your comments below. What are your thoughts on the set, and is there something in particular that you're looking forward to? Otherwise though, if you're still watching, thanks for watching. It'd be cool if you can like and subscribe and all that kind of stuff. I'd encourage everyone to come join my Discord server. You can find a link to that in the video description below. Also, if you'd like to purchase any Magic cards, you can get those by going to face2facegames.com. They're the largest Magic store in Canada, and they're also a sponsor of the channel. And you can use code 8thPlaceDave at the checkout to save 5% on your order. I'd also just like to take a moment to thank all the patrons that support me on Patreon. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you later.